And welcome back, and we are joined by Ryan from our Nutrimed team. Ryan is an amazing guy. He really understands our Nutrimeds so well. Ryan, I'd like you to pick out a couple that you think are top-notch, and we'll kind of expand on their applications and some of the science behind them.
Well, Dr. Bill, I think trying to think of where I would go first today. I think that I think fish oils would be a good thing to talk about.
Yeah, because we did some new advances. Now, the technology for Omega Supreme Pro, what is the technology and why is it so much superior to everybody else's Omega Supreme or Omega oil that they have? Number one, we also test every batch to make sure there's no solvents or excipients or heavy metals. But also the ability for this to dissolve and absorb into the body is far superior than anybody else's in the world. And then we have Omega Supreme Krill. We have the Omega Cod Liver Liquid. These are omega oils that are really essential for cell membrane health, vascular health, and brain health.
Yeah, the building blocks of the cells, and we get them completely out of whack, typically just by the diet that Americans typically eat, and this is spreading around the world. So we get an imbalance, and we do not have enough of these omega-3s that are constituting kind of the structure of the cells, and that affects everything, cell signaling, communication, and how everything works in our bodies, including how much inflammation we create. And so being able to support the body, because a lot of people do not like to eat a lot of cold water fatty fish. They just don't and do it consistently enough.
Now, our Omega Supreme is different. What makes it superior now? We did a major advancement in the last few months of Omega Supreme with a new technology nobody else has.
Well, this technology basically allows a portion of the product to basically become what's known as a monoglyceride. So when you take your oils and fats from foods, you've got to go through the digestive process, including the enzymatic breakdown, pancreatic enzymatic breakdown, where a lot of people struggle. We talk about this over and over again, that people's digestive tracts are messed up. As they age, if they're under stress, they will take things like antacids. They will mess up the way the body works. And so what's neat about this new version, the Omega Supreme, where you talk about the Pro version, where what you're getting is a maximum of absorption because it's already in this pre-digested state. And so it can cross the gut lining and impact the body very dramatically. We've seen certain case studies where we see, this is pretty wild, but in 30 days' time, we're able to jump the omega fatty acid concentration for the omega-3 specifically anywhere from 4 to 6% in 30 days. And so if people are familiar, JAMA's recommendation where they'd like to see, Americans getting 8 to 10% of their cellular membrane at 8 omega-3 concentration. Well, when taking traditional fish oil, even stuff that's been in the Nutrimedical line before, that can take a very long time, and it's pretty intensive with regards to how much they have to take. This allows you to take a lot less and get a much better bang for its impact on the cells, and that's what everybody likes to see. That's the advances in technology everybody is rooting for.
Yeah, so it's much more absorbed and transported to rebuild the cells and tissues and organs. Now, the krill oil, ours has 2,000 micrograms of astaxanthin, one of the most important vascular brain and antioxidants in the world. And our Omega Cod Liver Liquid is very essential with vitamin A, D, E, and K. It also lowers your cholesterol levels. Is one of the actual head-to-head studies shows it lowers the abnormal VLDL3 and smart particle HDL better and safer without side effects compared to HMG CoA reductase inhibitors like Crestor, Lipitor, and Zocor. Now, what about the Omega Supreme Krill? This is really a remarkable product as well. We have the only company in the world that makes it so that you're not like Mega Reds, only 17 micrograms of astaxanthin. This is 2,000. This is extremely important for protecting the brain, for protecting blood vessels, and the heart.
Right. Yeah, krill is an amazing substance, but what's in the krill, besides the omega-3s, which is really wonderful in a phospholipid format, is that it's delivering that astaxanthin. Astaxanthin is very unique as an antioxidant that when we get it into our bodies, it has a very protective effect. As a matter of fact, many animals, the pink ones like flamingos or shrimp, for example, animals that can withstand a lot of UV exposure actually typically have very high astaxanthin content because it works to protect the damage from UV rays.
In other words, it's going to protect you against skin cancer. So I'm telling people if they're getting a lot of sunlight, they should take two things. Gamma E plus and omega krill, right?
Yeah, and it's very weird in the science part of it is its structure. Antioxidants have to decide, are they working on the outside of the cell, the inside of the cell, but astaxanthin has a very unique biochemical structure that allows it to span the length of the cell from the outside and the inside. And so if you can think of a bridge going across, that's what it's doing. But what's weird about that is it does not require the same recycling effects that normal antioxidants need. And so its ability to hang out and protect our cells on a much greater level is very advanced from anything else we've seen. So that's what astaxanthin can play a really great role.
It's the second most powerful antioxidant in the world. The most powerful is our polyphenol in our NutriDefense. Let's talk about some other things that I think are really important. Bones. Our bone generator actually has bone crystals in it, the calcium, magnesium, hydroxyapatite crystals. It has silica, boron, and manganese. It also has the actual bone growth hormones present in the bone generator. I recommend 3 to 6 capsules 30 to 45 minutes after your 2 largest meals. I recommend you take with that full vitamin K2, metaquinone 7, micelle D3, usually 4 to 5 soft gels twice a day, and the myco D2, which is a mushroom-based vitamin D2, at least 1 to 2 capsules twice a day of the myco D2. If you're doing exercise, I recommend the best exercise for your bones is vibrational, because in the compression phase, the piezoelectric crystals increase the charge on them and remineralize. I also recommend you give collagen support with Collagen Max. You may add the use of Nutrimedical Hermetis jelly, and also the bone generator peptides and so on, present in Mountain Red Velvet. So bone generator is really good stuff. I mean, and a lot of people are not aware that they have a problem. And the best screening test is measuring urine levels of deoxypyridinium and pyridinoline collagen subunits. If you take our bone generator and the other things I mentioned, that will drop to 0 in 3 weeks, which means you're no longer ripping your bones apart. And you can do a QRMA test if you have a QRMA machine, or a DEXA bone scan, which you should repeat once every 6 months to once a year, and it'll show you. But the urine test can be repeated in 3 weeks and show it's normalizing, which means if you have osteopenia or osteoporosis, our bone generator will reverse that. Anything you want to add them on bone generator, because this is the only form of bone rebuilding material you want to take. You do not want to take White Cliffs of Dover or any other supplement from any other company. This is far superior and actually includes the bone growing hormones as well as all the trace elements necessary to support vitamin D metabolism with silica, boron, and manganese, etc.
Right.
Yeah, so I guess I included it all. Let's talk about some of my favorites for autonomic nervous system, Brain Mag and Calm-Mind. Can you expand on those, Martin?
I love Brain Mag, very powerful formulation that allows for the magnesium in the formulation to effectively cross the blood-brain barrier, which we just, I think, in this industry as a whole, would just assume that by taking magnesium, as long as it's getting into the body, it should be fine at crossing the blood-brain barrier, and that's just not the case. And so it has a unique version that allows it to really cross that blood-brain barrier effectively. And it's got such fascinating research studies have been done over the past decade, including things like fear extinction in animals. And so animals that have learned to respond a certain negative way, which I think many people can relate to in this day and age, right, is like a PTSD scenario. And they're able to, just by adding magnesium and getting magnesium into those animals, is to quench that irrational fear that they have and extinguish it. And that's a powerful thing to think about for our own lives, for many people that have a lot of that kind of pent-up type stress issues or stress response. The other thing that had a very fascinating study with regards to memory and cognition in the animals, and they've gone on now and done human clinical studies for people with cognitive impairment. And these people are kind of running down that road where eventually you could see them leading into Alzheimer's. And they had a total turnaround really significantly after 6 weeks, just by making sure the brain has adequate amounts of magnesium. So I think for a lot of people, Dr. Bill, when they're looking at, hey, I take a lot of brain supplements and there's different components for herbals and things like that, those are all cool, but if we're not addressing foundationally deficiencies in things as basic as magnesium, probably missing the boat on a lot of what you could do to protect the brain and make it optimized in the way that it's functioning. I know every afternoon, I'm pretty sure you typically mix some of that stuff up with Sports Energy Light, and I love that combination myself.
Yeah, it's pretty amazing stuff. And one of the things that's really important is antioxidants. Now, we have, of course, We have Nutrimedical, one of our original nutraceuticals, that is the best long-acting form of ALA, and it has all the different isomers. We have, of course, the cell detox glutathione to get rid of. By the way, one of the most important protectants of your mitochondria is glutathione peroxidase activity. And then, of course, we have the things like gamma E+, which are going to get rid of nitro and hydroperoxy radical. Let's go through some of these, because antioxidants are important, and Power C, by the way, Power C is also a powerful diuretic to get rid of excess fluid. So if you're having fluid problems, the first thing I recommend is Power C+, and then Vein Away. Those two are very good diuretics.
And the Power C Plus really is a breakthrough in vitamin C and utilization of vitamin C, because vitamin C is extremely acidic in nature. And so oftentimes people have heard anything more than 500 milligrams or so, you're not going to absorb it very well. That has a lot to do with the acidic nature of the actual compound. And so what you're looking at here is known as the mixed mineral ascorbate. It's basically able to neutralize the pH so that you can enhance the absorption of the material. And so in each capsule, 750 milligrams of vitamin C is delivered in these mixed mineral ascorbates. The beauty, too, is there are electrolytes that are being delivered in there. Then it's enhanced with a material known as bioperin, and that's a black pepper extract that's been shown to, in humans, increase the absorption of vitamin C by over 40% when in combination. So that's a beautiful, 1-2 punch. And really, as we all know, when we have immune challenges, you've got to have adequate amounts of vitamin C. Otherwise, you just don't have enough soldiers on the battlefield. And the more vitamin C that you can have while that fight is going on, I know kids would relate to this more than anybody, but when you play a video game, you sort of have a shield effect in a lot of shooting games. Having adequate amounts of vitamin C means your shield gets restored faster so that you can withstand the onslaught of all these bad guys, whatever may be attacking you. And so to me, that's a good image of what I do.
Yeah, that's kind of a really good way of looking at it, because what the Nutrimedical does and the Power C, they actually recycle all the other antioxidants, don't they?
Right. Yeah, it's like extending your lifespan. For a video game, you're like, oh, cool, I got 20% more now out of these guys, and you're like, well, that's cool. But we often are so depleted that our immune system's taking hits and collapsing fast. And many people, I'm sure, listening out there say, yeah, my immune system is that way. It falls apart at a drop of a hat. If I just get a little stressed and get my kids bring something home from school, I'm slammed by it. It's like, well, yeah, your immune system is not prepared to fight and fight effectively. So, as I think the new president-elect would say, he's like, your military is ill prepared. Basically at this point, you're in a very poor state of readiness if you're attacked, and I think that goes for a lot of people's immune systems.
Let's look at one of the more important, epigenetic stimulants is Cell Defense Plus. This is our new form of curcumin. The technology in this, by the way, is probably one of the most important breakthroughs in nutraceuticals in 20 years. And the reason is it gets rid of cancer mother cells, it changes cytokines, it helps to clear the tissue to prepare for stem cell regeneration. Curcumin is a very, very powerful and very important nutraceutical. It's probably the number one nutraceutical on the planet, but it is incredibly poorly absorbed. But this new technology changes all that. And so let's talk about Cell Defense Plus. This is very important. I take at least 1 or 2 capsules a day. It's amazing stuff, isn't it? What makes this technology different compared to even our old curcumin tablet? The Cell Defense Plus is really important to not only prevent cancer, but abnormal cytokine levels, brain inflammation, tissue inflammation, autoimmune disease, even getting rid of the cancer mother cells into the stem cells that support cancer and autoimmune diseases. It has some remarkable properties, doesn't it? Yeah,
well, buyer beware on the curcumin market, and we say this about a lot of ingredients. This one in particular, there's tons of curcumin that's available to people to choose from, and there's just a lot of arguments about what's bioavailable and what's not. Most of the formulas that are in the marketplace, people are being dramatically misled. They are falsifying, in a lot of ways, the absorption data for what they're even getting in their curcumin. What's beautiful about this material, it's the most studied and published raw material in curcumin that is absolutely available in the world. And so it's the highest end, and what's beautiful about it is 95% pure curcumin extract, but at the same time, the remainder of it is all natural curcumin components that include things like the essential oil aspects which is another, when you look at the compendium and things like Chinese medicine, and when you look at the compendiums when it comes out of Eastern medicine about how you should use an herb for treatment, when it comes to curcumin, this is the way the material should be used. It is a very powerful, as you say, natural product that works on so many different levels in the body. And we harken back to some of our conversations from, years ago. We've started talking about NERV2 and the pathways about how the cells identify what's going on in their environment, the toxicity, the inflammation, the detoxification needs, the ability to regulate its own antioxidant production. All those things are critically regulated by what's known as NERV2. Well, curcumin just happens to be a very powerful NERV2 regulator.
Yeah,
and
that's
so
what's
when you
called
talk about
NF-kappa.
all these things it can do.
Yeah, it's the NF-kappa 2. Basically, we've getting fancy. Another area is
those are funny, the science names of them, but people should just know when your body has this in presence, it can better identify what challenges you're facing and then regulate them properly.
Exactly.
And unlike drugs are a light switch, on and off mechanisms, where this is like dimmer switches and a whole bunch of them, so it can tune up and tune down what it is that your body needs. That's why it's so powerful.
Inflammation that causes diabetes, leukotriene B4. Inflammation that causes joint problems. Inflammation that causes eye disorders. Inflammation that drives cancer or autoimmune disease that causes cytokine levels to rise and NK killer cell activity to increase. So if you're taking this, it's going to help rheumatoid, diabetes, peripheral neuropathy, inflammation of the brain we call BAF or brain on fire. It does a whole lot of things. Next one that I think is really important is cell detox glutathione. A lot of people, they'll take whey protein, they'll take all kinds of things to increase glutathione. This is the acetyl form of glutathione. It is the most powerful form to get rid of hydroxyl free radicals and nitroproxy radical. It's extremely important, the cell detox glutathione, and it goes along very nicely with gamma E plus and all the tocotrienols and tocopherols. Let's talk about cell detox glutathione for a minute, because I tell people you've got to take some of this every day. In fact, of the things that I think are going to life extension, NTH Max, cell detox glutathione, and NutriDefense because it includes SOD, and Minerals Plus because it supplies all the minerals to stimulate the antioxidants and protect your mitochondrial DNA. What's in it and why is it so important?
Sorry, Dr. Bill, I cut out. Which one?
Cell detox glutathione.
Well, the important thing, glutathione is the number one powerful antioxidant your body produces. Not that you consume, but that you produce, right? But when we try to take the components to build glutathione, oftentimes that's not what our body gets. We don't get more glutathione. And when we take, actually, many years now, people take glutathione, unfortunately it falls apart during the digestive process, and again, they don't have that benefit of increased glutathione. This is the first formulation that really overcomes that challenge so that you can raise up glutathione levels directly.
Right. So what it does is it gets absorbed, and then when it becomes acetylated, it penetrates deep into the tissues before it's released, and it supports getting rid of these free radicals that are very damaging. Amazing stuff. Back in just a moment with more with Ryan. Your questions on any health issue, 800-313-9443. Back in a moment. Things that people are not aware of is that they may have heavy metals in their body. If their well water might be contaminated with heavy metals like uranium if they live in the Northeast or Boulder. They might have a lot of chicken in their diet, so they're going to have arsenic. They might have had mercury amalgam, so they're going to have mercury. Or if they had root canal, they're going to have got a perch or cadmium. Keeler Max, let's talk about this for a minute. I prefer long-term oral chelation to even IV. Let's talk about what's in it and why is it so superior to just taking EDTA?
Well, more comprehensive in nature, and also most people are not inclined to want to just go and get IV therapy, and being able to do it in kind of a safe and slow manner orally with a formulation like Keeler Max can be very advantageous, because that's how we built up sort of the heavy metals, is by opening our mouths and breathing in our air and so forth. And so we can work on a detoxification program that will slowly start bringing that burden down as well, and bring it down effectively, so that it's not going to be a fuel source for viruses or a triggering of inflammation and many of these other kind of subtle things that must be going on for a lot of people that are breaking down. And so it's a good component to a detoxification program.
Now that's interesting, is that I found the same thing. I don't like when I've had people have taken IV chelation. It's very rough on them. They often have to give Myers cocktail afterwards, and it doesn't replace all the trace elements that they're yanking out of their body. Whereas if you do it orally over a period of time, you actually adapt much better, and it does all come out. And the problem is some of these minerals heavy metals that are in the body aren't going to come out quickly, even with IV chelation. They need to be done over a period of many months or years. Let's talk about the next one. We talked about omega cod liver liquid earlier, why this is important with our vitamin A, D, E, and K. Let's talk about Collagen Max. I mean, I had recently had somebody that said, what about Dr. Alex Jones' collagen product? It's like, this is garbage. Why do people think that they're going to second guess and get a better product than what we provide here? It's going to triple the rate of the proline transhydroxylase enzyme, make collagen elastin, hyaluronic acid, and the hyaluronic acid polymer in your skin, your eyeballs, and your joints. Why did they think that? So let's talk about Collagen Max. This is one of our more popular products for improving your skin, hair, and nails, making you cosmetically look better and reducing wrinkles, but also strengthening up your connective tissues around your joints, helping to rebuild the cartilage in your joints, glycosaminoglycans, helping to strengthen tendons if they're partially strained or torn, like rotator cuff. This is a very essential product. I think every adult should be taking it.
Well, especially as we age, and you can do your little self-check. You can, right now, look at your nails. Are they weak? Are they thin? Do they break easily? Hair. You can look at thinning, breaking, falling out. Look at the skin, particularly UV facial, like the area of the face. If you get a lot of wrinkling, then what you're probably going to start realizing is, yes, you're falling apart on the outside, but your body is also probably falling apart on the inside. It goes hand in hand. And so this is a product that helps overcome what's known as the rate-limiting step, so that you can produce collagen, elastin, and keratin. And so this formulation's, a huge favorite with everybody that listens to Nutrimedical because, one, they see the difference on the outside of their bodies, and then two, they start noticing the feeling of how their body's moving, like the joints and so forth, and improving on the inside of the body. And also, it helps to address the deeper issues like bone building. People do not recognize that 30% of the actual bone content is collagen. All this mineralization that people are all hyped up on about taking more calcium or something like that, really, if you do not address the collagen deficiencies in your body, there's no way to properly build bone. It really plays a role.
It's the rebar for your bone. Actually, the number that I've heard for, say, the spine is 42% of the dry weight of your spinal bones, and your regular bones, like your arms and legs, is 42% dry weight is collagen. Pretty crazy, hey?
Yeah.
42% of the dry weight. Let's look at the next one. CoQ10. When we come back, CoQ10 and CoQ10 ubiquinol. We have the only non-polymerizing CoQ10 in the world. We have CoQ10 ubiquinol, the most absorbed form of CoQ10 ubiquinol, crosses the blood-brain barrier to stop migraines, protect the brain and the eye. And, of course, when we come back, we'll talk about that, of how important CoQ10 is for your heart, your brain, and your tissues, and your metabolism, even stopping migraines. Interesting is we have very unique products. They're not really comparable. A lot of people say, well, it sounds like the same I can get at Vitacost or Amazon or my local doctor or cardiologist. Not. Our CoQ10 is the only CoQ10 that doesn't polymerize in the world. We used to, for example, when I was having it custom compounded at Pencol in Denver, and this is back in the early 90s, we tell people, I said, it loses 95% of its action within a month. So even after a few weeks, it's lost a lot of its biological action. And the pharmacists will laugh because all of the CoQ10s in the world still polymerize and lose their biological action almost immediately. Within a matter of a few weeks, they're pretty well become useless. We have the only CoQ10 that doesn't do that. We also have the most bioavailable form of CoQ10 ubiquinol. So if you're trying to turn off free radicals or stimulate brain metabolism like in Alzheimer's, you're trying to, stimulate even regrowth of gums. For example, one of the most powerful stimulant for gum regrowth is CoQ10 ubiquinol. So let's talk about these for a minute. CoQ10 Supreme, CoQ10 ubiquinol. These are amazing supplements, aren't they?
Well, yeah, absolutely. Because as you hit the nail on the head here, is most of the stuff that people have access to is just stuff that's not going to be very bioavailable. It's already crystallized. You got a very low absorption rate, and so you're getting in there, getting 3% absorption, 1.5% absorption, and that's pathetic. And so when you can use some of these technological advantages that you see with Nutrimedical lines products, where you can get these absorption rates up at 8-9%, so that you can really truly impact the overall concentration in the body for CoQ10, then you can really get the bang for your buck. And this isn't just CoQ10. We talk about this all the time with many different formulas like Nutritrala and so forth. There's so many different things that if you do not address the bioavailability or the half-life issues or the crystallization and things like that, you're really you're just getting played basically most of the time with regards to the supplements you use. They're like a life insurance policy that's not going to pay off.
Yeah, in fact, that's the problem is most drugs are pretty useless, but I've saw a lot of supplements, because they're not bioavailable, they're not absorbed, or they polymerize, they don't have any biological action. That's pretty important. And of course, the ubiquinol is the one that crosses the blood-brain barrier. It's a reserve form. And you need both, by the way, for your heart and your blood vessels, but especially the CoQ10 ubiquinol for the brain, the peripheral nerves, and the solid organs. Let's look at the next thing. One of the ones that I haven't talked about for a while is curcumin cream. Now, this is a transdermal curcumin that helps to not only turn off pain, and we use it along with pregnenolone cream, but we also find it helps to reverse the skin damage caused by sun. It's also used to reverse skin changes that can cause precancerous cell changes and deep tissue inflammation, so it reduces cytokines. So I recommend for pain, you put on the pregnenolone first and then put on curcumin cream, and the combination is very good for pain and inflammation in tissues, whether it's a tendinitis, bursitis, or another problem. Let's talk about it, because this is a very neat cream. It also helps reverse the cancer mother cells in the skin and repair the DNA. It has some pretty amazing properties, curcumin cream. So, Ryan, what do you think about that?
Different way to do the delivery system that can be very effective, right? Putting things onto the skin can be very advantageous in a lot of ways. We know that most people have digestive difficulties, especially as they age, or there can be a challenge with something close to the skin, and that's nice to be able to use a product more directly in that sense. But either way, this is also a derived from a white curcumin, which allows it not to stain the skin, because for a lot of people realize that curcumin is one of the strongest pigments known to man. It's unbelievable. And so being able to use a version that's not going to make you look like Homer Simpson is great, but still gets the therapeutic benefit.
Yeah, and then the next thing I want to talk about is our hormonal therapy, DHEA cream, along with pregnenolone. We're also going to be launching shortly a testosterone cream, too. The DHEA is very important. In fact, the studies done in heart disease are if you have males that have higher DHEA levels, they don't only have higher hormone levels, but they have lower heart disease and dementia problems and loss of lean body mass. So DHEA is important. It's very important for females to convert DHEA and pregnenolone to not only adrenal hormones, but female hormone, estrogen, etc. Next one is diabetoline. And I recommend at least a diabetoline capsule morning and night, along with a berberstatin morning and night to reduce glucagon levels, because elevated insulin is present, elevated glucagon levels are present. You need to reduce both. Diabetoline is a very, very amazing formula. It basically, combining with the Minerals Plus, will lower insulin resistance by providing the trace elements and minerals, but also the sinulin, the cinnamon extract, and other components that will reduce insulin resistance. So let's talk about diabetoline and berberstatin for just a moment for diabetes and weight loss.
Yeah, resensitizing the body's message, for insulin, getting these GLUT4 transports to take the sugar and make sure that it's getting inside the cell and being utilized, because if it stays on the outside in circulation, it's going to do damage. It's going to have an activity of binding with proteins, and the effect is a lot like rust on a car, the browning of an apple, the burnt top of creme brulee, if you will. You are going to get glycosylated end products, and that's going to, over time, create major damage. And that's where people, start recognizing nerve tissue, brain, eyes, kidneys, all those become very susceptible to damage. And so you use these formulations as a way to help sensitize the body to the message of insulin, and also help with regulation of sugar.
What's interesting to me is how simple these things are, too, and they can dramatically reduce your need for insulin or taking other drugs. Next is Digestes, and, of course, with a Gastrozyme for restoring your normal digestion. The Digestes restores normal stomach acid and pepsin levels. The Gastrozyme, the best enzyme combination, including even glutenase to get rid of gluten. These are amazing, and it's much more common than people realize. When we do a QRMA test, or we do actually a comprehensive digestive stool analysis, too, which is done through Genova Labs, through directlabs.com, you can actually order the kit yourself, get the kit, send it in, and then you'll get a stool analysis and tell you if you have undigested food or meat fibers in your stool. And maldigestion is very common, and even small bowel overgrowth. But Digestes and Gastrozyme. Let's talk about these for a minute.
Well, easy way to think about these Digestes is when you're starting to get digestive difficulty about an hour and a half after eating food, or it feels like a brick in your stomach after you eat foods. This is generally a good sign that you need some support. But it flies in the face of what people have been told is you're actually looking to add acid into the body. Why? Because it's very likely that you actually produce too little of stomach acid to break down your food properly. So that sets you up for a lot of digestive difficulties. And so when you look at Digestes, that's what happens. A lot of people are like, oh my gosh, this made everything easier. My food, everything seems to be just fine. I don't have any problems anymore. And it flies in the face of what people have been told, which is to suppress acid because they think symptomatically they feel better. But that's a lot like putting black tape over a warning light on your dashboard. Don't do that.
I like that. That's
very rare. Very rare that you actually do and would create more acid, considering it is one of the most biologically intense processes your body ever has to go through. And it doesn't like doing it when you're under stress or on the run. Are you a person that's under stress? Do you eat on the run? Well, guess what? Most likely you do not produce enough acid for you to break down your food properly. And that means you can also set up for the small intestinal bowel overgrowth, or SIBO, where you get bacteria translocating from the large intestine, an alkaline environment, and moving up to where it's supposed to be harsh acidic environment, which is the small intestine, and where your enzymes can work properly. Well, anyway, you're setting yourself up for a lot of challenges, and the mainstream medical community is publishing thousands of papers now recognizing the fact that if you have digestive difficulties, this bacterial overgrowth is really triggering a lot of problems for people. And it can be rectified, and it's not another drug. You just have to start at the top. Chew your food, slow down, be conscious of what you're doing when you're eating, and make sure you have enough acid in your stomach, like with Digestes, to break the food down properly.
Exactly.
Gastrozyme is a complete vegetarian formula that, again, if symptoms are about 2 hours or later, you get food particles in your stool, foul-smelling stool, you're not digesting fats properly, you're starting to look at more like you need to support your enzymes, which Gastrozyme is a very powerful, comprehensive, completely vegetarian version to do that with. Exactly.
One of the next gamma E plus, we talked about it earlier, getting rid of nitroproxy and hydroproxy radical. GastroHeal, we're talking about stomach. This is zinc carnosine. The formula, actually, a lot of research came out of Japan. It's the best formula for acid reflux, for bile gastritis, for hyperacidity in the stomach, or where the gastric mucosal barrier is breaking down, and also even for proctocolitis in the rectum. GastroHeal actually stops a lot of the gut spasm that's going on. We use that along with our IBS care, which is a gut-release carnitine. Let's talk about GastroHeal for a minute. This is what I recommend if people are finding they get acid reflux or other problems with their stomach. It's really good stuff.
Well,
it works very quickly. You chew a couple tablets, and in a few minutes you feel better.
Yeah, and also it's very helpful, especially as people are coming to know natural medicine a little bit more. Sometimes when you go from saying like, hey, I've been suppressing acid, to hey, I'm going to drop acid in my stomach, can really freak people out. Or you look at something like GastroHeal, what's beautiful about this formulation, it's very simple. Zinc and carnosine in a very specific ratio that's very soothing and healing to the gut, to the stomach, and reparative and very healing repair. The beauty is it can be added right on top of people that already do take some of these suppressive medications to start the process of healing. And the whole goal is, hey, try not to spend the average, like many Americans have, of 20 years on digestive drugs that are like proton pump inhibitors, acid suppressors, and things like that. 20 years is the average time frame. They get nothing but stuck using these kind of things. And so GastroHeal is a really neat one because it can go right there on top, and it doesn't fly in the face for a lot of people of kind of a counterintuitive decision to make. So use GastroHeal first, and then you can start thinking about bringing in Digestes and some of these other things to help you with your digestive complete support.
Exactly, yeah. But next is glycemics. We talked about earlier is the best drink for normalizing blood sugar and blood insulin, but also weight loss. Glycemics is fantastic for weight loss, isn't it?
Mm-hmm. Well, yeah, because if you're not distributing sugar or disposing of sugar properly, then you are going to trigger weight gain because insulin's going to run higher. That's going to tell your body it wants to store fat, not burn it as energy and not burn the sugar as energy properly, you're misfiring. Your engine's misfiring.
Yeah.
So something like glycemic meal is beautiful because it supports these issues with a lot of micronutrients that are very unique, specific enzymes that slow down carbohydrate absorption, cinnamon, patented form of cinnamon, the green tea, alpha-lipoic acid, but also it's a macronutrient meal, so it means it can be used as a meal replacement. So if that's breakfast, afternoon, actually it really works extremely well for people even just doing a half serving before any of their major meals, because it has such a great job at regulating glucose and then that message of insulin. So that's how a lot of people want to use it. And then the downstream effect is when you control these processes, weight starts shifting properly.
Now, one of the next ones that I haven't mentioned for a while is Green Tea Supreme. This is very good for boosting metabolism, for detoxing toxic chemicals. It's an amazing formula. Inflamex, this is one of my favorites. Can you talk about that for a minute? If somebody's got joint inflammation, tendon inflammation, inflammation of their interfascial planes of their tissues, and they're getting deep tissue massage, Inflamex is essential if you can break up the adhesions and turn off the inflammatory reaction. Any specific comments about Inflamex?
Well, Inflamex, these are proteolytic enzymes. They're different than digestive enzymes. You take them away from food, and the whole design is their impact will be systemic in the body. And right. So it's very, like serrapeptidase is a fascinating one that's been used for all kinds of challenging, including, dental extractions to, acute challenges to the body. And Dr. Bill, the best description I give people as a visual aid is to just think about, if there's an accident on a freeway and it clogs up and you're stuck in traffic, do you want a lot of tow trucks and wreckers to come in and clear that junk out or not? You're like, yeah, a lot. Clear it out as fast as possible. That's what you should be thinking about, the damage that's going on in the body. That can be acute or more chronic, but this is like bringing in those wreckers and tow trucks to clear it and to enhance and get them back on.
Yeah, I have a home visit from a custom deep tissue massage therapist who does, I call, as I say, she doesn't speak with an Austrian accent, but she might call her Mrs. T. And she does an amazing job. And without the use of Inflamex, those adhesions would stick back together again. Next thing, of course, is joint performance and tendon mender. Let's talk about these for a minute, because if you want to rebuild your joints, you need joint performance. If you want to stop tendinitis, bursitis, carpal tunnel syndrome, tendon mender. Amazing. And any comments on those?
Tendon mender is a really top one to think about, because so many people are stuck from a repetitive motion injury standpoint that they've done rehabilitation, they've taken all kinds of anti-inflammatory blah, 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 and they can't really figure out how to handle this area. You see them, they're wearing these braces on their wrists. They usually are doing a repetitive motion type of job in a lot of cases. When they've been injured just doing some kind of goofy sport, they could be doing a bar class. All of a sudden their forearm, just for some reason, is so inflamed and it just will not get better, and this can last weeks or months. Knees, elbows, shoulders, plantar fasciitis, Achilles tendinopathies, all of these things can be dramatically impacted with tendon mender. So it's something that just has a very unique message in what it does is to allow the tenocytes to realign and to lay down and to thin out. And so for many of these conditions, it's almost like the people have built up scar tissue in a way, and that needs to be relaxed.
Yeah, it does do that.
This is a very unique signaling to do that.
One of the ones we haven't talked about for a while is LipoFlush, which is our conjugated linoleic acid. If you're trying to burn off calories, we have forskolin, but LipoFlush is amazing for mobilizing with the CLA, the fatty acids, and burning off calories. So the Green Tea Supreme, LipoFlush, and of course forskolin, these boost your metabolism rate, and curcumin, the cell detox glutathione, the cell defense plus, and the topical curcumin. You can actually apply curcumin to the areas where you have body fat, and it'll help to burn off those calories and even get rid of the convert white fat to brown fat. But LipoFlush is amazing for mobilizing calories out of the tissue, isn't it?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and this has been used for many, many years. Studies have been done using conjugated linoleic acid as a supportive way to help the body to break down the fat and basically get it leaner in how it's used.
Yeah, and by the way, this ties also with elevated cortisol, which is why we use Grain Mag and Combine, because people who are overweight have basically a form of Cushingoid syndrome caused by hypercortisolemia. And LipoFlush will assist that as well with mobilizing the fat in somebody who's Cushing-goid because they have high levels of steroids in their body. Back in a moment with more with Ryan, and coming up tomorrow, we have, of course, Carepar University and Milda Toffel back from LSEMF, and Tim Alexander with his latest blog post-election. He's been Probiotic Ultra is the most powerful probiotic on the planet. Most people aren't aware of just how important probiotics actually nourish your gut colonocytes, your gut wall, and provide and make sure your gut doesn't get too leaky, let large allergens through. It's part of healing your gut. It's part of the restoration of your health. So, Living Probiotic Ultra. Any comments?
Yeah, the comment is most people's guts are totally destroyed by alcohol, sugar, stress, antibiotics. If you cannot reestablish the good flora in there, then things like weight gain, cardiovascular disease progression, all these things become, a problem. And so science is telling us, it's like, let's make sure the gut is working well. So you got to use the strains that are powerful enough. They've got the science behind them, and that's what you're going to get when you use the Nutrimedical line of probiotics. So Living Probiotic and Living Probiotic Ultra are two great choices.
The other one is magnesium glycinate, and we have the magnesium potassium citrate, too. The magnesium potassium citrate stops stone formation, gallstones, kidney stones. The best oral form for your peripheral body is magnesium glycinate. The best for the brain is the Brain Mag, which has the magnesium L-threonate, which crosses the blood-brain barrier, and some magnesium glycinate. Glycinate won't wreck your gut. You can take a ton of this stuff. It's good. It's a magnesium lysoglycinate chelate and the dimagnesium malate. It's a really amazing formula. Any comments there?
Well, yeah, making them bioavailable, like you're saying, allows the body to absorb them well and you utilize them well. It's critical. Oftentimes, otherwise you're just going to, have a bowel problem.
Yeah. Now, the next thing is cancer. Malignant arrest. We use this for autoimmune disease and cancer. And malignant block. And by the way, the malignant block is also present in our ageless, which is part of the reason why you age less, because it repairs DNA. So malignant block and malignant arrest. Let's talk about these for a minute.
Science is just profound on what these formulations can do. So a lot like when we talk about curcumin and how powerful it is. These are some that the malignant block, for example, has been studied for many, many decades. And so if people know about broccoli and they go, hey, broccoli's good for you, yeah, take the key components from broccoli and be able to use it in a encapsulated formula, because most people can never consume 3 pounds of broccoli a day to have a profound impact across your body on when it's being challenged. And this allows you to do just that. And then malignant arrest is a very interesting formulation where you're looking at these benzoquinones that are basically interrupting the way that abnormal cells like to grow, fuel themselves, and propagate and hide from our immune system, and being able to work beneficially, that when you take that as a supplement, you can expose these weaknesses for the abnormal cells and allow the body to get to work on getting rid of them.
Right. Now, that's kind of neat stuff, isn't it, that you're able to do that? One of the formulas we haven't talked about for a while is Mega Muscles. We have some new formulas coming down the pike as well, but the amino acids are, you're trying to maintain body mass, build up muscle, the Mega Muscles formula is amazing, and I usually recommend you take that along with our microdose HGH and Collagen Max Mountain Mid Velvet, rebuilding muscle tissue and ligaments. Thank you, Ryan. You've done an amazing job. We'll see you again.
Thanks, Dr. Bell.
Yep, and guess what? You have the holidays coming up pretty soon here. We'll see you back here a little later, and thank you for being such a fount of knowledge on our fancy NutriMeds.